Today, we are going to discuss higher order components in React and how we use them in Reaction. So what exactly is a higher order component, or HOC? At its core, an HOC is just a React component that we use to inject information into another React component. The HOC contains another React component, which is why most of the HOCs in our code are in container folders, right next to the component folders, which you can see here. Higher order components are used to isolate functionality, such as data fetching and manipulation, away from presentation. This way, you can reuse your presentational component throughout the application, providing different data to it for different screens, or vice versa, using the same data store for various presentational needs, which is the example we'll be showing you in a little bit. First, let's take a look at a component without using an HOC. Reaction is built on Meteor, which means we use reactive data sources such as collections and reactive vars. Traditionally, we use trackers to handle updates from the reactive data sources. In a single contained component, we could create a tracker inside of React's component did mount lifecycle, watch for the changes here, and update our state to reflect the data changes. Right now, we're searching for all the shops in the Reaction marketplace, and we're going to display the count of the number of shops there are. But what if instead, I want to show a list of all the shops we have? I need the same data, but I can't use the same component to display it, so I have to rewrite the render method to show what I want it to show. I'm going to have to save this as a new component now. So we have two separate components that use the same data, that use most of the same code aside from the render method. That's a lot of duplicate code that's unnecessary. This is where the higher order component comes in, to separate that presentational layer from the data fetching layer. Here is our container component for our higher order component. As you can see, the bulk of the code in the middle here is the same, with the render function being the only main difference. The render function contains our wrap component, which passes our existing props as well as our new shops prop into our presentational component through the with shops function wrapper. Now let's look at a presentational component and see how the higher order component works with it. This presentational component will display our shop count like we were originally doing. We're importing our new with shops higher order component, and we'll be using the props that were passed in the HOC's render method, seen here. These props are passed to the presentational component by passing the new component as a parameter into the withShops function and exporting that. We do the same thing here in a second presentational component, passing the same data in and displaying a list of the shops instead. Now, we can take our two new presentational components, import them into a new file, and display them as is, because the data is already passed through the higher order component. We can simplify our code a little bit by using a utility called ComposeWithTracker. This utility accepts a function that would normally be the body of the tracker and a component to update when the data changes, and then composes that with the HOC. This will allow us to remove our data fetching from the various React lifecycle methods and do it all in one place. This highlighted section of code is everything I'm going to replace with ComposeWithTracker. I'm going to move it down a few lines just so you can see it while I write the new code. I'm writing our ComposeWithTracker function, passing in the props and onData, which sends the new data to our component once the data is ready. I'm using the same fetch function from before to get the data. Now, I'm attaching our wrapped component, which tells ComposeWithTracker this is where to pass the data to. And that's it. This little highlighted piece of code replaces this whole chunk of code, 29 lines down to 5. You can read more about the higher order components that Reaction currently uses in our docs at docs.reactioncommerce.com. Check out the Components API section.